This is Colonel Denny Gillem. It's 20 minutes after the hour, and you're in formation listening to Front Lines of Freedom all across America. A Front Lines of Freedom salute to one of our show's sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage. They really take good care of vets and non-vets too. See VanDykeMortgage.com. New subject. The VA is an organization full of good people, but obviously very poorly led. The senior staff get big bonuses while the number of vets not being serviced grows. One area that the VA needs help in servicing is veterans with hearing problems. I'm one of them. The obvious way to help the backlog is to use civilian hearing companies who can provide competent people to help our vets. Joining me now is Ben Norris. Ben runs a hearing company with several stores in the Grand Rapids area. It's called Miracle Ear. Welcome to Front Lines of Freedom, Ben.
Hey, thank you, Denny, for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Let's start with you, Ben. What's your background? How'd you get into the hearing business?
Well, it's more of a second career for me, which I find is actually true for a lot of people getting into our business these days. I have a background in psychology and social work, and I ran into the owner of several Miracle Ear stores about 6.5 years ago in a Barnes & Noble bookstore, and we got to chatting, and 6 months later I was sitting down over coffee, and I made a career change on the spot after he shared with me what he was looking for here in the Grand Rapids area, and he said he was going to provide the training and get me licensed in our field, and then eventually it grew into me in charge of several stores in the Grand Rapids area.
And the rest, as they say, is history?
You got it.
Well, in my situation, I get hearing aids from the VA, and one day one of them just fell out, and I didn't even notice it until I got home. So I called the VA, and they said maybe 6 months later I could get another one or something. I just gave up on that whole thought. Then I met one of your guys. I went in and talked to him, and he could help me virtually immediately. And I got the impression that if a hearing aid just fell out and I didn't notice it, maybe it wasn't put in right, maybe a little bit more of attention that the VA didn't have time to give me could have made that hearing aid stay in.
Certainly those things happen to our patients from time to time as well, so it's maybe not a VA-specific issue. However, when we spend the time to fit the hearing aid properly and take the appropriate measurements to make sure that hearing aid's going to fit and hold in there securely, we certainly have a greater success rate of obviously not having the type of situation you've run into.
Well, I knew that they didn't fit exactly right, but there wasn't anything I could do about it. If I were one of your patients, I could come in and you'd do something.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. I think the biggest thing, and it's really not a criticism of the VA and what their purpose and what they're looking to do to serve. I understand it's a free service they provide for our veterans, which
yes.
They've served our country and gone to bat, and that's why our country is the way it is. However, what we're seeing is they have a closed provider network, which seems to create limited access, and they're so backed up with the number of veterans they serve. I mean, that's 20% of the industry is VA-fitted hearing aids, that they just don't have enough people or staffing to adequately serve veterans' needs.
Yeah, the people that are there are excellent people. As far as I'm concerned, I got excellent treatment and excellent diagnosis and excellent everything. It's just that they're flat overloaded. So let's talk about that. Obviously, bringing aboard people like you with some kind of a contract would take care of that overload and maybe give better service, or maybe the answer is allow the VA to give better service so that everybody's getting better service. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. The initiative that's out there right now is called the Fit to Serve Initiative, which has been headed out by the International Hearing Society, also known as IHS, which is based in Livonia, Michigan. And their basic premise is that there's other qualified providers out there to fit hearing aids. Right now, the network is closed to simply the VA. And we know for a fact in talking that they certainly outsource other types of services that they offer to veterans. However, they haven't taken that step to serve the veterans in the area of hearing health care yet. And when it comes to that, this initiative Fit to Serve essentially states that there are several dispensers out there, hearing aid specialists. There's also audiologists out there, and what the initiative states is that this should be open up to the hearing aid specialists that are readily available to help and have just as much qualification, if not more experience in a lot of cases, serving our veterans than it's someone just coming out of an audiology program that's really never fit a hearing aid. So there's lots of us out there in our profession that are able to help with this need. It's just a matter of opening up those doors and create a larger provider network to do that.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. This is Colonel Denny Gillem. You're listening to Frontlines of Freedom, and we're talking with Ben Norris about helping the VA help veterans with hearing problems. Again, this is not putting down any of the fine people that work at the VA, but overloaded is overloaded, and I didn't know till you told me that the VA outsources other kinds of care, but it makes sense that they do, and there's no logical reason to me about why they couldn't outsource here. They just haven't done it, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know the details all behind it. I just know what I'm seeing, and the only thing I have to share are the personal stories that I hear from our veterans that end up in our store looking for service, and in some cases also choosing to purchase hearing aids out of their own pocket, even when they have a VA benefit, due to the fact that there's limited access and or the inability to get service in a timely enough manner to serve their needs. And if you don't mind, Denny, I'd like to share a few of those stories with you just to make people aware of the types of things that I'm seeing on a regular basis.
Yeah, please do.
I think of a gentleman that came in. He had a need for a more powerful hearing aid. It's not that his current ones weren't working, however, not at the level they needed to really help him hear speech and communicate with his wife and function at a normal level. And so he had gone to the VA, had a hearing test, and he had been on their waiting list for over 14 months. And he finally came into the store, and this happened a few years ago, and he said, you know, I've given up on the VA. And, you know, certainly we were able to help him, and we had the hearing aids in his ears within about a week, week and a half at the most. We had to custom make the hearing aids for him. But unfortunately, I'm seeing that a few times a month. I had another gentleman a few months ago. He's been on the waiting list since February. He came in September. He said, I'd rather work with you because the last time I had to send a hearing aid in, it took me 6 weeks just to get it turned around. I'd rather pay for hearing aids and make sure I can get service immediately.
Folks, this is a call to action. If you want to help our veterans, like me, contact your Congress critters and ask them why the VA hasn't used that kind of help that's available, that Ben described. Our federal government has enough money to give free cell phones to everybody on welfare. Maybe they can redirect some of that money towards hearing for veterans. Ben, tell us one more time the name of that is IHS, the International Hearing Society?
Yeah, to get more information on the initiative, you can go to this website. There's actually two I'll give you. www.ihsinfo.org, ihsinfo.org. And then the other website I would give you to help people better educate themselves on what's going on out there in the hearing healthcare industry related to this issue is fit2serve.us, fit2serve.us.
Awesome. Ben, thank you for taking time to join us today. Thank you for your efforts to help veterans who are in need.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.